Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the US. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the US and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website rickackerman.com. Welcome back to the show, Rick.
Always a pleasure, Jim. Thanks for inviting me on.
The price of gold, a lot of people have told me that they expect gold to break out this year. One of the reasons being the U.S. dollar continues to decline. What's your point of view?
No question. The dollar, which officially became the target of official weakening yesterday with the Treasurer's speech at the Davos meeting, the gold basis COMEX February contract currently trading 1360. Since around Christmas, I've had a target at 1389, and I've been somewhat skeptical because gold has produced some encouraging moves, but it only gets you just to that threshold where you're feeling a little bit encouraged, and then it's taken a drubbing, and the corrections in gold have been really horrific. But this time we've got a sustained move, and the Feb COMEX currently trading 1360, so it's got another $30 above. I'm just about certain that it's going to get to that 1389.60 as I've been all along. We need just a little bit better than that. I'd like to see 1398 to provide a strong hint that this gold move is really just the beginning of something much bigger. And the reason I cite that price is that there was a very important high made in August of 2016. The high was 1397.90. That's basis this same February contract. So if we can get above that, in other words, just let's see, it would be about $8 higher than the target I just gave you. That would refresh the bullish energy of the daily chart, and it would put into play some longer term gold targets that go up as high as $2,258 per ounce.
Will the big drop in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies encourage people to go into gold?
Well, I don't think anything so horrific is going to happen to Bitcoin that all the wild and crazy speculators would return to gold. There's certainly I think that's what's happened. A lot of gold traders have been fascinated by Bitcoin, and the swings have been pretty wild. I have a potential target in Bitcoin up around 23,000 and change, and the symbol I use is BRTI. That's not an actual trading vehicle, but it reflects the very small distance between the lowest offer and the highest bid across many exchanges that trade Bitcoin. So my target right now is 23,247 basis this BRTI symbol, and that's more than twice where it's trading right now. We're at 10,928 as we speak, basis this BRTI. But I wouldn't get too serious. I'm not going to be thinking too much about that 23,000 plus target until we get a rally of about 1,800 points from here that hits 12,701. If it gets above that by $100, let's say, I give you a pretty good odds of a further move to 16,216. So I'm looking at pretty precise levels here, but these all come from the hidden pivot forecasting system that has served me so well over the years.
One of the concerns people have about Bitcoin is the amount of energy needed to process it. Right now, they're saying it's using up enough energy to supply all of Ireland's energy needs.
Yeah, that's as far as I can surmise. That's true. I mean, what happens is that in order to earn Bitcoin as a reward, all the numbers crunchers, the Bitcoin miners, go at it trying to solve an algorithm that essentially is incorporated into the blockchain itself. Bitcoin is referred to as an open, it's an open system, meaning everybody can see each transaction, but to add the transaction to the block, that sort of locks it in so that nobody can cheat, nobody can create Bitcoin out of nothing. The blockchain gets extended, and so you might have 10,000 numbers crunchers going at it, but it's only the first cruncher that gets to the solution that gets the Bitcoin reward. So all of the other all of the rest of the computer power that's used to solve for the Bitcoin algorithm is wasted. And when you look at how many transactions a day can occur in Bitcoin, the number is minuscule. So we're really burning up the transaction use of most of these cryptocurrencies has not lived up to the promise, and so what you wind up with is huge energy use, just a lot of guys going at it, most of them for naught.
Well, China says one of the reasons why they're very concerned about cryptocurrencies is their massive use of energy. Apparently something China doesn't have a surplus of.
Yeah, it's interesting that would be the official take, really, because it's always been my feeling that China didn't much care about some of the things that are creating such a speculative fervor in the West. Gold would be one example. The Chinese government is kind of zen about it. They have no real constraints against their citizens holding gold, and they don't get out there and say they want the yuan higher or they want to buy lots of gold or this or that. The Chinese, I think, go back to the fundamental idea that if you create a strong economy, all these sideshows will just sort of sort themselves out, that they don't have to price the yuan and they don't have to be the reserve currency or anything else. So they're not really concerned with some of the esoterica of the speculative world. They just sort of let that happen, and their main focus is just on creating economic strength.
And of course, they do have currency controls where they try to keep currency from leaving the country. With Bitcoin, they don't have any control over that.
I don't think even that troubles them too much. It winds up being a relatively small number, Bitcoin, let's say, in possession of Chinese nationals. So I don't think there's a real problem there.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. A work program is planned for our Finland property that contains diamond-bearing kimberlite. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ADD, and the Frankfurt Exchange, symbol 82A1. Please visit our website at arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, the U.S. has changed its policy on the value of the U.S. dollar?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a surprise. You've got the dollar getting whacked pretty hard, and now just to add insult to injury, we've had our U.S. Treasurer make a statement to the effect that, yeah, it's great to have a cheaper currency because it helps the U.S. Export businesses. And that's certainly true. It's just that for this pronouncement to come out when it has, I mean, the dollar has been sliding since the beginning of this year, from a high near 104 to a recent low this morning of 88 and change. So it's had an enormous sell-off, and for an announcement that's sort of dollar bearish to come out at this point, I guess you could say Trump's really serious about giving American manufacturers a boost.
Except America is a huge importing country. This is going to increase costs for consumers, is it not?
Most definitely, although I guess we should be grateful at this point that so many of the car manufacturers, foreign car manufacturers, are here in the U.S. So it's all U.S. payroll, even though the receipts, the revenues, go back to the country of origin. So I think that on balance, so yes, Americans will pay more for goods that they import. But keep in mind that a lot of those things that we import, the global pressures right now, deflationary pressures on all manufacturers are pretty stiff. And so I would have expected, even with the dollar falling apart, the effect will be relatively muted.
The price of oil still continues to go up, just over $66 a barrel now. Do you expect that trend to continue?
Yeah. Now, you know, anytime we've talked about crude in the past, I've come across as a real inveterate bear, and the last time down, crude didn't quite get down as low as I thought it would be, well under $30 a barrel. I think that's where it's going eventually, but you know, I've been bullish on crude for quite some time, certainly going back to late 2016, looking at what I have taken to be just a corrective move. And the thing that you and I have discussed is this idea that most of the bull market in crude has been driven by a supply-side story, as though the mere curtailment of supply, cutbacks by OPEC and whoever else, Iran, would somehow create a bull market. I was always skeptical about that, and my idea of a real bull market is demand-driven, specifically demand-driven by the biggest marginal consumer of energy, China. So here we've got crude going crazy, and I had forecast this, what I saw as a corrective rally, going up to 63 and change. I had a very precise target for that, and when crude just blew through it, it did so with enough force that I think that it's easily going to get into the 70s, maybe 75 or even higher. So let's just say I'm a very long term, I'm still a crude bear, but that's when we're living in a very different world, perhaps in some sort of global depression. But for the time being, I'm just nothing but bullish on crude, and I haven't quite figured it out as far as what could be driving it. I mean, it's hard for me to jump aboard the idea that the world is about to launch into a manufacturing or a boom in manufacturing real goods, which would certainly contribute to the rise that we've seen in energy prices.
China is still very concerned about air pollution. They have banned the 10 top polluting vehicle models. You just can't buy them anymore, so they're certainly making a move. But how soon do you think China would be able to convert from using petro energy to electrical energy to move their vehicles?
Well, a lot faster than we could in the U.S. You know, for one, the nuclear power is an option that is open to them, as it is not in other countries. You know, Germany, for one, has decided it wants to be completely out of nuclear power by, I think it was 2023. So the Chinese, just by virtue of the fact that they can, by central government decree, say we're going all in with electric cars, that of course only that raises the question, how do you generate your power? And there's no doubt that the Chinese are serious now about generating electricity in a cleaner way. You know, we get down to that the old argument that these energy companies that are supposedly polluting the world, when you get right down to it, these are just men and women that have children, and they want them to grow up breathing clean air and drinking good water. So I think that as cynical as we might be about China being a huge polluter, it's obvious they've turned the corner on that in a big way, and they're really serious about cleaning up. So I would expect, I don't really know what the timeline will be for replacing China's auto fleet with hybrids and electric cars, but as I said, it's going to happen a lot more quickly than it would in the U.S.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic Engineer Gold Mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're chatting with Rick Ackerman. Rick, do you see any big moves in uranium if China decides to go big on atomic power?
Yeah, that would be a natural, but you have to allow for a ramping up time. I'm not, even though I think it's a bullish factor for uranium, maybe a little premature to be jumping all in the uranium stocks.
Taking a look at other precious metals, palladium, platinum, what's going on there?
Well, there's an interesting presentation. If you go to Financial Survival Network, Kerry Lutz's site, I did a panel discussion a week or so ago with two pretty good guys. One is Mickey Falk, who's down in Mexico, and he did a presentation on palladium versus platinum, and very, very interesting. You may have seen a story recently that what was an Asian producer of palladium. They're actually trying to, maybe it was, trying to remember whether it was, I don't remember the sovereign entity, the country, but they're basically promoting the substitution of platinum for gold in jewelry. So you know that that these are desperate times for platinum producers. Hybrid cars have taken a lot of the steam out of the market for emissions systems in cars that use those precious metals. So also the battery storage equation is changing as to which which minerals that we dig out of the ground are going to be most precious. So we've got, for instance, zinc and other types of metals that are being used mainly in the production of cars that were used in different proportions than before. So I think a lot of it is on the auto industry, but I don't see anything, I don't see any great hope for platinum. I have some platinum nobles myself that I've just been sitting on. I'm not going to get rid of them, but I wouldn't get my hopes too high.
Cobalt seems to be the hottest of the battery minerals.
Yeah, and I don't know too much about that market, but again, the threshold really, or the big concept here for investors is the transition into cars that use different raw materials, not only in the construction of the cars, but in the powertrains and all that.
The tax reform in the U.S., is that going to spark the economy? Because we see places like Starbucks and Walmart increasing the salaries of their employees, people who haven't had pay raises for a long time.
Well, I have my doubts, really, that this tax package was really doing much of anything. The big piece of it was that they'd reduced the corporate rate from 35 to 20%. But as far as I'm aware, on average, companies pay about a 20% tax rate. So I didn't see much of an effect. However, with all these companies essentially making changes in their accounting to allow for the tax changes, the benefits are pretty clear. You know, I mean, even when Goldman took a huge write-off, the stock was essentially strong on the news because everybody understood that as big as the write-off was, the gains over a relatively short number of years will exceed the write-off itself. I think it was in the neighborhood of $16 to $18 million. So, and you know, the more recent discussion involved Apple somehow bringing home the I think it's about $250 billion they hold outside the U.S. In practice, they don't really hold it outside of the U.S. The money is fungible within many accounts that Apple has here and there, but it becomes officially investable when Apple can deal with how they using that money when they paid their taxes on it. So they do, and the rate is obviously very favorable compared to what it would have been if they were taxed on that income. You know, if as though it were made here in the U.S. So the thinking is that a lot of it is going to go into share buybacks, increased dividends, and things like that. And so it's the only surprise is that with all that good news, Apple stock it's certainly moving higher. It's in a bull trend, but it hasn't been moving quite as ferociously as some of the other wacko stocks like Amazon, Netflix, Google, even Microsoft.
When the Democrats ran the show, the Republicans were very critical of the U.S. deficit. Now the Republicans are in charge. They don't talk about it at all. Any concerns there?
I don't put any more. I'm uninterested in talk about the deficit. It will matter eventually, but only in the throes of a deflationary collapse of the economy. So we're a little bit away from that. But you know, talk about the deficit to me is like talking about a government shutdown. It's like, did anybody really notice? It means nothing. So you know, if the Democrats are trying to make political hay with that, they're going down the wrong path because no one really cares.
Do you really wish governments would stop playing politics and actually do the job they were elected to do?
I think we've sort of lost track of what they were elected to do, and maybe cynical enough to think that even whatever they were elected to do, they're never going to do it anyway. And of course, that's why Congress polls in the popularity ratings about the same numbers as Governor Chris Christie, maybe the most unpopular man to hold high office in this country in the last 50 years or even 100 years. So everybody gives Congress low marks for good reason. They never get anything done, and I think probably a lot of us, I'm tempted to say most of us, are grateful for the fact that they get nothing done, because when they do get something done, you better watch your wallet.
Rick, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Always a pleasure, Jim.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at HowStreet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or our guests can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.